Hello and welcome to the world around us. We begin our journey this time in India itself with a profile of the RSS, or the National Volunteer Force. Then we travel all the way to Papua New Guinea and catch up with a retired tobacco farmer who has just fathered his 103rd child. We also journey to the edge of the Arctic Circle and participate in a walrus hunting expedition. And we round up the show on the Pacific coast of Colombia, where we meet the whale woman. When US fast food major Kentucky Fried Chicken set up shop in India, many political organizations were up in arms, protesting against what they felt was an invasion by foreign influences. One such organization was the RSS, or the National Volunteer Force. While the RSS may be a concern for other multinationals planning an entry into India, what worries most non-Hindu Indians are the movement's often militant endeavors to make the country a Hindu state. Hindu nationalism works well at the hustings, and the RSS is even believed to be behind India's largest political party, the BJP. We tracked the RSS and the genesis of this movement in this report.
Every day throughout India, 6 million Hindus from 16 to 70 perform these military maneuvers. They are the RSS, or National Volunteer Force, a militant Hindu supremacist movement whose members want India, a country of many different religions, to become a Hindu state. At a training camp outside Delhi, 600 RSS volunteers go through their paces. It looks harmless enough, except there is more on the agenda than Boy Scout drills and male bonding. Along with the yoga exercises comes a heavy dose of Hindu nationalism, a sensitive topic these days for the RSS. These men are waiting to hear a lecture on India as a Hindu nation, which we were not allowed to film. Jai Gopal has been a member since 1938, during the early days of the movement.
The RSS is nothing less than an army. We only army only guards that frontiers of the country, but RSS guards our culture, our dharma, our so many traditions, Hindu way of life.
What is alarming to some is that the RSS is behind the Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, India's largest political party. 70% of the BJP, including former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, began their careers in the RSS. Aaron Shourie is a well-known political commentator who supports the movement.
BJP, of course, is a child of the RSS, founded as a party about 45 years ago in a former name called Jan Sangh. And it was an offshoot of the of RSS, but it is now a sort of an organization that is there on its own. Of course, the RSS is sympathetic to it. Its cadres will be available to the BJP to some extent for structuring the party. Maybe it may be that they'll be available for campaigning.
The RSS was founded in 1920 as a pro-independence movement by Hedgewar, a high caste doctor. Its aims, then and now, are still the same: to instill national pride into the country's Hindu majority through military skills and discipline, to resist foreign influences, including leading a ban even against Kentucky Fried Chicken, and, most controversial of all, to destroy mosques and to restore them with Hindu temples. RSS cadres are taught to worship the saffron flag as a symbol of Mother India, an undivided Hindu India that includes Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Kashmir. During its history, the RSS has been banned 3 times, once after a sympathizer assassinated Mahatma Gandhi for being pro-Muslim. But more recently, the RSS has been cleaning up its image. It now runs 21,000 social work projects in India's slums. In training centers like this, street kids are taught skills in basic trades. But even these are thinly disguised recruitment centers. Along with the skills and schooling comes a strong dose of Hindu indoctrination. Sanskrit and Hindu songs are taught at all 11,000 RSS schools. Indrajit Gupta is head of India's Communist Party. He points out that India is a diverse mixture of religions, ethnic groups, and languages.
The whole idea is, as we understand it, is that the whole country must agree to accept unquestioningly this culture, philosophy, religion, and everything of Hinduism. Such an outlook, in our opinion, would be disastrous for the unity of this country.
Most alarmed by the rise of Hindu nationalism are India's 110 million Muslims. Nearly 3,000 Muslims were killed in communal riots 4 years ago, after RSS cadres destroyed a 16th century mosque in Ayodhya, North India. But many Indians fear the consequences of Hindu nationalism for India as a whole.
If anything is done by anybody to weaken that thing, or to break it up, or to destabilize it, the country will definitely get dismembered. It won't be able to survive.
Meanwhile, the RSS and its political front, the BJP, are gaining in strength. The RSS now has 30,000 branches throughout India. 11 years ago, the BJP had 2 seats in parliament. Tomorrow, they may rule the country. This is Julian West reporting.
"12 wives and 103 children. In-laws and grandchildren add up to another 300. And there's still room for more for Papa Yanak, a 73-year-old retired farmer. The secret of his abundance, black magic. And if you thought 12 wives would create marital problems, you're wrong. Papa Yanak sleeps with a different wife every night, and no one's complaining. The church, meanwhile, is attempting to persuade Papa into mending his ways. But that clearly will take a lot of convincing.
Papa Yanak is a 73-year-old retired tobacco farmer in Papua New Guinea. He's also been married to 12 women and has 103 children. His immediate family is made up of nearly 300 people. That includes his sons and daughters-in-law and his grandchildren.
With my first 9 wives, it was true love. With the last 3, when I asked them to marry me, they told me that I was too old, that they would prefer a younger husband. So I used black magic. I had them smoke a magic herb, and the following night, they tore their mosquito nets and came to join me in my bed. The next morning, their parents asked to meet me. I paid the dowry, and that was that.
But it takes more than black magic to feed this crowd. Papa Yanak's wives are grating the pulp of a palm tree, which will be used to make sagu, a kind of flour. Sagu is often what the family eats when there's not enough fish to go around.
When I got a big work, and I'm going to ask my small brothers to go and help me, and we'll come together again. Because our job will done quickly and come back. And the bad one is food. Sometimes we are suffering about food and running out of money. Our father got 12 wives, and he cannot feed all of us.
Actually, the family provides for itself since Papa Yanak is retired.
I'm too old to work. I've delegated everything to my sons and daughters. The building of the canoes, the cultivation of the fields, the preparation of the sago. Me, I dedicate myself to my palm groves and to my wives. That's my secret.
The family's only income comes from Papa Yanak's tobacco farm. It earns about $500 a month, but it could earn more. The family smokes most of the tobacco. Papa Yanak's wives harvest his several dozen hectares of land.
When a plot is cleared, it is divided into 8 parcels, and each wife is responsible for her corner, except for harvest time, when we work together. It's a good system. It permits us to feed everyone.
There's a strict social organization to the family. The little ones get fed first. Adults eat later. To avoid incest, boys over the age of 7 are banned from the big house. They live in huts in the family compound and can only return there to live after they are married. Papa Yannick, though, sleeps with a different wife every night, an arrangement his wives say is fine with them.
My husband changes beds every night. I'm not jealous. I don't begrudge the other wives. We help each other.
White missionaries who first arrived in this remote region in 1952 brought with them the Christian teaching against polygamy.
I'm the one who brought the missionaries to the village. Afterwards, they discovered that I already had 3 wives. They told me that was not right. I told them that whether I had 3 or 4 or more wives, it was none of their business.
The closest church is 6 hours away by canoe. Sister Victoria is trying to convert people like Papa Yannick, but in these remote regions, many hold on to the old traditions.
The tradition says if a man has many women, they will have a big name. So they still believe to that tradition. But of course, this will be changed little by little.
Still, change is coming. Each of Yannick's sons will probably have only 1 wife, and that may make Papa Yannick the last in a long line of polygamists.
Harpoons, rifles, and binoculars are what you need for a walrus hunt. But when you're on the edge of the Arctic Circle in deep Siberia at 3 o'clock in the morning, hunting takes on a completely different hue. The fleet of walrus hunters we traveled with is in fine form and succeeded in bringing home 10 walruses. For the people here, this is virtually the only means of livelihood, as they are neglected by their government. And on some days when the weather is bad, hunting isn't easy.
On the edge of the Arctic Circle, the Bering Straits divides east from west. On the Russian side, at the farthest reaches of Siberia, is Kamchatka. Natives living in the villages that hug the coast eke out a subsistence living from the sea. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and the lights are going on in houses throughout Welland as the news spreads. The weather is good today. The sea is calm enough for the men to go walrus hunting. On board the boat of Brigade Number 7, the only tools are harpoons, rifles, and binoculars. 4 hours later, a walrus is sighted. A walrus can stay underwater for 12 minutes, but when it's injured, it surfaces much sooner.
Generally, it takes 10 to 12 hits, but that depends on the size. The really big ones can take up to 50 hits and still get away. Sometimes, after just 1 hit, the walrus stays on the surface and we can harpoon it immediately.
It's a big catch, a male, weighing more than 1.5 tons. The hunting was good this morning. Brigade Number 7 made 1 kill, but the other boats were even luckier. In all, the fleet brings in 10 walruses. The boat's crew share the best bits, the heart, liver, and intestines between them. After that, anyone can help themselves. Everyone in the village will get their share. Surrounded by ice caps from November through June, Welland is one of the most isolated spots on Earth. The Russian capital is 9 time zones away, and the people here feel neglected by their government. Under the Soviets, families and businesses got financial support from Moscow each month. But those subsidies are drying up now, leaving the natives here to return to a way of life their ancestors knew, complete reliance on the sea for survival. Gennady has a wife and 4 children to feed, so a successful hunt is especially important to him.
We live only on meat. We ask our friends and our relatives for other products like tea, flour, or sugar, and we stretch them to make them last until the government check comes in.
Gennady's wife goes to the grocery store, but there isn't much on the shelves, and what is there she can't afford.
The situation is getting worse, for food especially. We never accepted thieves. They would be disowned by their families. Now there is a lot of theft in the village. We never had that problem before, and it's mostly food being stolen. If it wasn't for the walrus, we'd be dying of hunger.
A sudden change in the wind can bring bad weather. The hunters must be patient and use the time to repair their boats. They have been building baydars, the traditional wooden and walrus skin boat, only for the last 3 years. Under Brezhnev, the boats were condemned as primitive and were banned. Instead, the hunters were ordered to use heavier and slower whaling boats. Although they were safer, they didn't work as well.
С любого места припая вот ледяного можно сталкивать, вытаскивать. В общем, она очень удобна.
The baydar is well adapted because it's light over the ice. We can push or haul it, whereas whalers weighing between 1 and 2 tons are harder to shift. If there's a hole in the hull, whalers take on water quickly and are difficult to repair. You can plug a hole in a baydar with meat or fat. You don't need any nails.
In the hunting season, even one lost day is devastating. When they do go out, they cannot afford to come home empty-handed, and so sometimes the hunters break the law and poach near the coastline. The ban on hunting near the shore is designed to protect the walrus colonies that migrate here in August. But the hunters can't worry about that. They need the meat. They move in as silently as possible. Because there are so many walruses, the men must not frighten them. If the boats are surrounded, the walruses could easily turn them over. Gennady manages to harpoon a male. The colony is immediately on the alert. Even though it's been hit, the walrus is very strong. It pulls the boat toward the colony. They must try to finish it off as quickly as possible. It's too late. The colony is moving and they have to abandon their catch. It's a precarious existence, but the natives prefer the freedom they have here to life in the cities. Under the Soviets, whole villages were deported and put to work in factories and offices. Their traditional clothing, customs, and food were publicly mocked, and their languages banned. Many became alcoholics. With the breakup of the Soviet Union, some native people are returning to their abandoned land. Volodya and his family recently left the city for a village on the coast. They are trying to learn the old ways so that they can show others who they hope will follow them. Volodya says they need to set an example.
Who else will do it if I don't? We have to begin all over again. Somebody has to come back to the land. It is the land of our forefathers, our culture. We have to rebuild it. We want to revitalize this area for our children so they can learn how to live off their own land. If we don't show them now, if we don't set them on the right track, it will all be lost.
The harsh economic realities of the post-Soviet era are forcing everyone on the coast to return to the old ways. In Whalen, where they desperately need food, they have started hunting whales again. Because they haven't done this for 25 years, They've had to learn all over again how to track the animal.
Трудно и опасно тоже. И хорошо. Люди погибают. А так...
It's hard work, dangerous and magnificent at the same time. We could be killed at any time, but it's a good job to do. We bring in the food, and when there is meat in the house, the wife and the children are happy. Today we have enough to eat. When there's no meat, the whole house is sad.
Дома тоже пусто, как говорится.
Today there are extra helpings and another rare treat. A birthday cake. It's Gennadi's daughter's 16th birthday. As hard as life is here, Gennadi hopes that when his children are grown, they too will stay in Welland and live off the sea.
But that isn't quite accurate a description of Lilian Flores, a biologist who's been tracking the migratory path of the whales for the past decade. Her mission, to emphasize the importance of the Colombian coastline as a nesting ground for humpback whales, an endangered species. Encouraged by Lilian's path-breaking work, a number of other biologists have joined her on this quest.
Every year, from June to November, humpback whales migrate up the Pacific coast of Colombia. And every year, Lilian Flores is there to see their return. She's a biologist who has devoted the last 10 years to charting the migratory path of the whales. She is committed to documenting the importance of Colombia's coastline as a nesting ground for the endangered species.
To see them again, to recognize them, it's like having a friend who's there and who goes away, and when he returns, it's so great to see him again. So, yes, I really like them a lot.
After the whales have left, Lilian returns to her office in Cali to study the pictures she's taken of them. Since each tail is unique, she's been able to identify and track over 400 individual whales.
The importance of these photos, that are practically the fingerprints of every individual, is that they permit us to do a census of the population and to estimate their migratory routes. We can compare these catalogs to the catalogs of other countries, and it's in this manner that we can relocate the same individuals. In Ecuador, we saw 5 that I had spotted in Colombia, and in Antarctica, they saw 10 that I had seen here.
Lilian tracks the whales from Gorgone, a small island 50 kilometers from the coast. The island is one of 30 national parks in Colombia. Mokan, an island guide, first took Lilian to scout whales here 10 years ago.
I was the first person to accompany Lilian on her whale expeditions. She cried with emotion when she saw them. First she was taking photos, then she bought herself a camera, and we would go out filming. She would call me and say, "We're set, the whales are here," and we would go out. We would hit the gas and get as close as possible in order to see them better.
On the boat, the team waits for the first whale to surface. Whales can stay underwater for up to 10 minutes, so hours can go by before they spot one.
There are some that are very accessible, very calm, that allow you to approach them. And then there are others that are more fearful, more timid, more likely to flee. They are very sociable and they're very curious as well. They approach the boats out of curiosity. If the animals are alone or if their mothers are with their young, they're scared. It's normal. They're protecting their young. It's here that they mate and that the young are born. We know very little about the actual mating of this species. There are people who have been working on this for 15, 20 years at other mating sites in other countries, but no one has been able to discover the actual moment of conception. We've seen signs that seem to indicate preparations for mating, but the actual mating for this species, we've never seen it.
Sometimes Lillian looks for the whales at night. Attracted by the light, they swim toward her, swallowing water and plankton. Lillian isn't afraid to swim with these massive creatures, but she and others like her face danger of another kind.
Certain biologist friends, very close friends, have had some serious difficulties because they found themselves in regions where there was some violence due to drug trafficking or guerrilla warfare.
Last September, a close friend of Lillian's, the director of another Colombian park, was shot in the head. 2 others were seriously wounded. That same week, yet another researcher was killed. The press has dubbed them the Green Martyrs, scientists whose work to preserve the environment puts them in the path of drug dealers and guerrillas who want these remote regions to themselves. Despite the danger, Lillian continues her work in the parks. She's also recently established an observation post at Malaga Bay, just up the coast. Malaga is a virtual maternity ward for whales. It's common to see 20 or more whale mothers and their babies.
He's about 1 year old. Therefore, most likely, like all animals at that age, his mother is beginning to let him fend for himself. But in reality, she's right nearby. Well, that's what we want to verify, if she's completely left him or if she's going to return. 9 years ago, when I began doing my research, no one believed that there were whales in Colombia. To show that they exist and that they represent a resource for Colombia and for all of us was a process that took us years.
Other biologists are joining Lillian in her quest to establish the Colombian coast as an important nesting place. And she hopes that one day she will be rewarded for the years of hard work. More than anything else, Lillian wants to be there to see the birth of a whale.